Welcome to Small Town Times. Today we have two North Bay councilors with us. We have Sara Inch. Thanks for coming, Sara.
You're welcome.
And Jamie Lowery. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy talking. You have a lot of background, and you're in the mix, both of you, in a lot of different issues, and you seem to be capable and willing to provide your opinion at council meetings, which is really great. Right. Now, Sara, I promised you I wasn't going to grill you and sort of just stick on the integrity commissioner stuff, but you've been through 10 months of it, and we can look to Bay-to-Day's reports to see the details and where it went and why. But we're going to try to spend most of our time on these other topics so that we talk about. I noticed after you got back from the rural municipality thing down south, what's it called?
Roma.
Right?
Yes.
I started seeing you post these basic questions, prompting people to think, and one of them caught my eye, and it was like it was in a Facebook story, and you said, "Should we? Is it? You can correct me, but something to do with have we had enough of corporate welfare?"
Yes.
Right. So I'd like to know what you were thinking about when you posted that, and maybe any responses you got.
Well, I'm someone who reads a lot, and I did get a few responses. I got mostly yes or no responses from people, and actually I didn't get a single yes. I got all no responses. Mm-hmm. I think that if you look at our tax system, we're taxing people heavily, and then we redistribute that money, and it's not always fairly done. And should we be giving money to corporations whose job is to make a profit? Should we not be spending it elsewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see a lot of examples of that. Ontario is providing quite a bit of money for big industry to come in and do batteries and other EVs and stuff like that. You wonder if it's money that's going to come, it's well-placed money that's going to pay off. And sometimes you wonder if you're just subsidizing a corporate welfare and profits, right?
Exactly. And that is what I was trying to make people think about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I certainly don't have all the answers. But I do like to think about these things and get a better perspective.
But what's another one that you did after that? There was a couple in a row. Do you like just sort of putting a little seed out there and see what happens?
I do. I think that's one of our jobs as a municipal councillor, even though people will say to me often, that's not municipal, that's provincial, or that's federal. I'm still allowed to think about these things because it's all one tax dollar, really, and it matters. So, screen time. So I'm on the health unit with Jamie here, and they were asking for input about where they should go in the future, any upcoming trends in society that might cause public health problems down the road. So screen time, to me, I think that could be a problem. I understand we all need to relax and we need technology. I use AI myself, but we also need movement, we need sunlight, and we need social interaction. And if there's a negative balance, that could be a public health problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agreement. There was one thing that you said, I think, correct me again if I'm wrong, that who brought up the possibility of having mixed meetings again so you can do remote?
Yes, so that would be me.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that I want to attend meetings from home. That's
Right.
not it. That's not the point. The point is that we should have that option available.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a bill that was passed to extend mixed meetings and also voting by proxy. And we talk about accessibility all the time. And this is a form of accessibility. And it's for people with different family status. So if you have a child at home or you have an older parent that you might need to care for if they're unwell, you should still be able to fulfill your council duties. And at the moment, you can't. And so I also see people coming in and they're not well and they're coughing. And, we've moved past masking and it's voluntary, but did we learn anything from the pandemic? Like, should we be sharing germs, right? And,
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I would imagine, and I'm going to ask you your opinion on this, Jamie, would you consider that it would be beneficial if people had so many percentage meetings that they can do remotely to fit in and make it better? Like, is it 50-50 or?
Well, I don't know whether it would be a percentage, because it really is context of what's going on in your life, I would imagine. I think most people want to attend in person, but there are from time to time reasons that, participating remotely is advantageous to not only the council member, but also to the community, because that voice continues to be at the table. We do it certainly do it at the health unit. I mean, it's it's a different context because there's such a huge geography there. But it does, people are participating, and their voice is not lost because of illness or, a leave of some sort or other obligations. So I do think it does have some merit. I don't know whether I'd be as prescriptive as putting a percentage on it. I think that's just an option based on the context of a member.
I would want to at least have, in my mind, an incentive to go and be in person, because there's so much value in that as well, so that you wouldn't have somebody just decide, hey, I like it better at home, right? It's that kind of thing.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that. There's also a lot to be said for coming to a meeting and not being prepared and not participating.
Yeah.
For example, this phone is at this meeting, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
So it could work that way as well. You'd always want to hope that an engaged council member would be prepared. They would be willing to speak up and engage. And so, whether that context is in person or whether it's online, I think it really is important to participate.
I think your point is really good about the illness and what we should be learning, that it is when you're shedding, when you're most transmittable. I don't know what the word would be.
Most contagious.
Contagious. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and and the other point to the virtual motion is that we have staff who have to attend these meetings. They sit there. Sometimes they're not called on to participate. And sometimes some of them live out of town, so it might be adverse weather, right? Snowstorm. And then they're driving home in that. So would it not make more sense for them to be able to go home and then participate virtually if we need them?
Yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for it.
Yeah, a lot of good reasons.
I just remember there was a motion that you guys had up that got pulled at the last minute a couple meetings ago.
Oh, the integrity.
That's
yes, the conflict of interest, strengthening the conflict of interest policy.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so who can you explain that one? I thought, and then I actually put it in my newsletter because I thought it would be some juicy conversations coming out of that, because everybody else was thinking about the other integrity commissioner report or at that meeting. I wasn't sure. Why was it pulled, and what was the aim?
It was pulled because we decided it needed more work, more time, and more input from the other councilors. And the aim of it was because people talked about not getting feedback or closure, maybe even, on the Judge Vallon Integrity Commissioners thing. And so I looked at it, and for me, the biggest takeaway was that conflict of interest. So they're defined a certain way, but you can have an indirect conflict of interest, a perceived conflict of interest. And so the way it's written right now, and they did get a lawyer who's very well versed in municipal law to assist with this, but it's just very broad. So it's an umbrella statement, so anything falls underneath it. But, if we had something that was more prescriptive, that spoke more to what these things actually are, and that's why we need to work on it, because I myself don't know. I'm learning, and I think that would be good for all councils going forward. That was my thoughts. What were your thoughts?
Well, and I guess when I look at something like code of conduct, I like the value-based approach. I mean, the onus clearly becomes the member, the council member, to whether they do think it's right or wrong. It's complicated in a lot of ways because we are in small town in some ways, and I looked at my relationship with some councilors. You look at someone like Councillor Maine. In the morning I could be a client. In the afternoon I could be contemporary. I could be his equal. And that night, if there's a Castle Arms meeting, he's my employer. So trying to decipher some of those relationships when you've got so many intermingling of people in North Bay. A lot of people that are involved in a lot of things, and so a value-based approach you couldn't prescribe. I'm not a huge proponent of prescribing because they can be circumvented as well. But I think you've got to leave it up to the integrity of the person to identify that this doesn't feel right, and I probably shouldn't be. And I've identified conflicts which were likely, by the letter of the law, not conflicts, but out of pure conscience, I've chosen not to participate, and that's just a me thing. But everybody's value system operates differently, but I think it really is up to the individual to identify if they feel that they are somehow conflicted.
Any examples?
Well, I could. You look at. You can look at when we're giving money to organizations. Right. Like when it comes to Clean, Green, Beautiful, for example, if they come forward, I will declare a conflict. I am involved in that organization. I've helped set up the not-for-profit status for them, and I don't think, there's no pecuniary interest on my part. It's all volunteer. I just don't feel that would be appropriate for me to lend my voice to that vote. And you see that with other members. Again, I go to Chris Main. He works hard at the Kiwanis Club, and when it came time to talk about the agreement and some things with the playground, he identified it as a conflict. Now, he doesn't get paid for all that work, but in his mind, he felt more comfortable. I would assume, I didn't talk to him about it, about not participating. So, some people have those kinds of things, and I think a prescriptive it's just that. It is very prescriptive, but you could still, I didn't mean it by that, or I went like that. You could still, there's some semantics there that you could sort of argue, but value-based truly lays it at the feet of the council member to decide if they feel conflicted or not, and that's a conscience and ethical question you have to ask yourself.
I thought it was already up to the individual to identify, and it would require some type of charge of some sort to clear up if somebody thought.
Well, the way it is now is that you don't, if there's a conflict, you don't have to declare it. But if someone else feels that there is a conflict, then there's a mechanism for that. And I think Sarah's, work on this is you can, have a look at it to see if there's any improvements we could make. I'm not necessarily thinking that there's something that is so wrong with the code, but you've always got to be looking and take fresh set of eyes and look at these things to see if there is some way to protect the public and protect people in the mix when it comes to conflict of interest.
Yeah, I would agree with everything he just said, and I think that is one of the reasons why I wanted the motion tabled, so that we can hear the different ideas, because that to me is part of the value, as well as having people think about it.
So what was the action item that you were asking for in that motion?
I wanted to set up an ad hoc committee to review it,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
or just to have staff maybe do an RFP or something, to have someone else, like a municipal law expert, to come in and review it. But we could also benchmark it against other communities as well and look at what they're doing, because everyone does something different.
Yeah, the one line with most conflict definitions, the perception of conflict, right?
Correct.
And that's so subjective. And I'm not sure if the perception of conflict should be there, because it's so subjective. It should be direct conflict.
Yeah, but again, is it... even defining that, is it a blood relative? Is it you've been friends for 20 years? You've done business with them in the past?
Yeah.
What? Really?
Well, that's
again,
part of the legal definition.
That's
isn't it?
Well, I mean, there is. I mean, for me, if I defined a conflict for a contract that my son is employed by a security firm. And to me, that's a pecuniary interest for me, because it's my blood relative is my son.
Yeah.
And so, but if it's two or three beyond that, you could say it isn't. But it's a strange world I find in politics, and there's some other municipalities that I know of. Votes are kind of traded. You vote for this, I'll vote for that, and you support this, I'll support. So there's an underlying thing that could happen, and I think that's where the perception of people and perception that there could be that relationship is important to identify, if not a conflict, but to certainly identify that that this is the case.
I think elected officials, like councilors, should be able to be the champion of a service club and participate in discussions regarding it, advising people of their relationship with the group and organization, but not eliminating their voice just because they're doing good work with the service club. So I wouldn't actually personally, or as a journalist, give somebody a hard time for advocating for the clean, green, beautiful, or the Kiwanis, because that's such important work in the community, and I'd want to, incentivize people to do it so that it wouldn't eliminate them from decisions at council.
Right, but if it is the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
you're voting your conscience, and certainly for the Kiwanis Club, in that example, I mean, it's a tremendous contribution. And if people, it would be shameful if people didn't see the value in a group like that that's contributing to. So, I think out of an abundance of caution, that's why I would, in the case of Clean, Green, Beautiful, and Chris did for the it really speaks for itself. And on council, as we've talked about a couple of times, you really are voting your conscience. Yep. I think that's a cleaner way to deal with it.
And really, when you're dealing with organizations, that is different than if it's a personal relationship or a business relationship between individuals.
Yeah.
So, perceived conflict, maybe that pertains more to interactions between interpersonal relationships between people versus service organizations. Because of course we're all involved with different service organizations or sports clubs or the city, and we'd all have to be raising our hand and declaring conflicts,
right? If
that was the case, right?
Well, with at risk of pissing off PETA, you can't swing a cat around this city without hitting conflict, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We're also conflicted because we're working together and doing a lot of things, and there's a lot of bridges across. You wanted to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives, opportunities to build on what's existing in the city. Are there some examples that you...
Oh, well, okay. So we have that methane gas collector at the dump. That's a wonderful green initiative, right? And I think all of us are aware that we need to do something about our climate and make some changes in our energy consumption and our consuming habits, et cetera. On top of, whatever the federal government prescribes us to do. So things like that. So the methane gas collector, why not make the dump more eco-friendly?
In what way?
In what way?
Yeah. Are there some
Well, at the moment, our staff have done a very good job, and they've come back to us and said that waste diversion is the key. So, we have this one dump, and then we also have the recycling depot, and maybe we should expand that. What we can accept as recyclables. I don't want to overpromise. I've been warned not to do that.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to too many things that haven't manifested or aren't.
But ideas to think
along.
about that maybe we can do a little bit better, because Nipissing Environmental Watch was just at council, right? And they were a little bit less organized and specific in their asks than usual, I think, at this particular visit. But, always got a good cause and wanting to keep that pressure on council to do something about that. Chris actually explained to them several initiatives that he thought were in line with that they were asking, starting with the
arena?
The arena, the 60 to 70 and who knows what cost scaled down arena that's... where is that right now with the arena?
The last council report directed staff to do an RF, I believe an RFI or RFP for to be put out in the first quarter of this year. So it should be out. I mean, by the timetable that I understand, that's probably likely going to be out in the next couple of weeks. And I'm not sure. There's been no specific date assigned to it. And it's, there was the committee for the committee, and they'd sort of landed on $52 million, and came back, and the consultant pointed out that there was the closest cousin to our project came in at $61 million. I believe I think it was in Guelph, and then you can add 20% for the net carbon zero. Now, there's a bit confusion there, because the 20% likely only applies to the HVAC and the mechanical system, because the building itself, although may have material changes that you would use in a building, I think that would be applied basically to the mechanical systems. So you've got a plus there. On top of that, if you notionally took $61 million as a comparable. And then, you've got to meet a very aggressive timeline for construction in order to meet the funding formula. And whether there's some given that date or not, I'm not sure. That's up to the funder, which is a body of the federal government. And so it was known that we'll likely have to pay a premium for construction in order to meet that tight deadline. And my concern with that, as I voiced at council, is that when you start tightening up things like that and putting hard deadlines and there's things that happen that are out of your control, whether it be supply chain or labor, and you start to make decisions, mistakes can be made. And I'd rather have it planned out of a project to make sure that those kinds of things are envisioned when they're developing a project charter and developing a program to deliver the project itself.
And you have some experience in that planning there with
I do.
$120-some million castle home.
And that was, I think that in my mind, it was the epitome of transparency, because the construction is not $120 million. Built into that was financing, furniture, equipment. There was a contingency fund. So that's, we wanted to put out there that this is the all-in cost. Yeah. I know that one of your guests said, there's going to be, he suspects it's going to be cost overrun. But it's very difficult to do a cost overrun when it's a stip sum project, which is, we've agreed to the only way that you start to look at things of extras if they're the unknown. Or the organization itself has caused a delay of some sort. So the price is what the price is. And, they'd be looking for some reason if they wanted to put the price up. It had to be something that was justifiable. So it's not in that realm. So.
This 62 sort of thought about the scaled down version of the twin pad proposal for Omichelle. Do you know if that included any of the financing costs and everything, or is there other things, furniture, right?
Well, I can say that it's the construction cost, because there's the way that the procurement process, it's a design build. And so there's also now design costs that'll be involved in that money. And then all the other, things. There'll be some infrastructure things that are not included in it. There's upgrades to the intersections or potentially some parking lot work and those kinds of things. But certainly the thrust of it would be construction costs.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think you peel that onion and we're going to be surprised about the cost. Sara, what's your opinion about the Omichelle twin pad proposal? I seem to remember that you were questioning it.
I was questioning the location and the design simply because, I've been taught that municipal government is the lowest common denominator, right? But I've also heard from people who say that if you don't use tax dollars to build beautiful buildings, they won't get built. We have this beautiful health unit. We're happy to have it. We have this very nice hospital. We're happy to have it. I think the difficulty with the arena is that it is just ice sports. So, unless we're also going to build a beautiful indoor soccer dome that would accommodate some field sports, is it really fair? I don't know. But I'm very confident in Jamie's work and Gary Gardner's work and Mark King's work. They've worked very hard on trying to get an arena design and a process that is more affordable for our city. So I'm confident that if it's going to work out, it'll work out because of their time and their effort.
Now, Jamie, you had a motion to get staff to do a more in-depth look at what it would take.
Actually, that was Sarah's motion.
Was that your motion?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Which one?
To look at West Ferris Arena.
Yes.
Well, it just seemed like it was coming from you because you're
Well,
always about the
I
West
asked him
Ferris
to
Arena.
do the press.
Oh, okay. That's where I got confused.
Yeah.
So, you wanted staff to actually take a good hard look at what it would take to refurb it and use it,
Yeah.
or what to do if you want to repurpose it, right?
Yes.
And I don't believe that was adopted.
It was not adopted. And I guess I was told it wasn't the right time. So it's gone to committee. We will discuss it, and it should resurface. And I'm happy about that. But in the process, we learned that the arena is not in terrible shape, that we can invest in it. They invested in the East Ferris, the Astorville Arena, I believe. They fixed that roof. It's possible. And we're talking about the roof now over the change rooms, not the main roof. So that's a big difference. Like it's huge. But I'm also, people also say, well, I have people who want to buy it, right? They would love to buy that building and use it as a community center. And
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, we've sort of been talking to some people, and there may be some appetite by some user groups to purchase it and program it, and and that would have been another benefit of an assessment of the building, as Councillor Inch, Sara was saying. Is that there's the community rumor has been that the ice surface, the roof over the ice surface is a problem. Well, I read every engineering report and I'd asked for every single one. So if there's one that I didn't see, then it wasn't provided to me. And it's clear that the roof is in great shape.
So that's a red herring. The barrel roof part.
The barrel roof part, and even the foundational part. It's clear in the engineering report that it has a clear path for the foundation. So a lot of that loading would come through the walls, and into the foundation. And the engineering report said those are intact. I wrote some of the quotes down from the actual reports themselves. But as I said, it goes beyond. We've talked a couple of times. It goes beyond just about the purpose of a community center.
Yeah.
Location is so important in a community center. Affordability is important, and there's a lot of merit to that site for the West Ferris community. And my sort of digging and talking to locals that were involved in West Ferris Arena years ago was that they always knew that roof over the change rooms was going to be a problem. In fact, probably in the 70s, there were staff that were charged with the responsibility, what they call them rink rats, of clearing the snow because the loading of it was pushing against the wall. So they've always known these things. So the roof thing is I don't know. And the other thing that I'm still waiting for clarification on is that the system that's below the pad that basically is the ice pad is actually in better shape than predicted as well, because it's not quite clear what system was put in place. And I can't totally verify. I'm waiting for that information. This idea that and fear that it's going to crumble or some sort is not accurate. Based on the engineering reports that I've read. Again, if there's other...
Well, the narrative of the West Ferris Arena is what propelled actually the Omichelle, not at Omichelle, they were looking at other sites before that, but a new twin pad community center. That narrative of West Ferris Arena is going to have to close pretty soon. And next thing we know, Pete Pelangio should be right behind it. But from what you're saying and from what I've heard, there's actually a lot of potential life, and that narrative was false.
I wouldn't say false, but it may be a little bit overstated. Let's just say
false. So yeah, well, let's settle on exaggerated. Well, either way, it all sounds bad. How about the idea was that people got excited about a new arena.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of liked my original proposal, which was the North Bay Mall. But if we had done that, we would. I think there's actually sports in there now. I think their pickleball is moving in there or something. There's something moving in.
There's is it KTP?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
he has a badminton and pickleball. Right? Yeah. So the mall has become a bit of a center for activity.
Right. And imagine, it would have been great.
Yeah, well, it's
you have the theater there. You've got shopping. That ship has sailed, obviously.
Yeah.
But that was and really programmed. I in the proposal wrote the programming for 12 month a year type of facility. Again, not going to
swing and a miss.
I'm not going to get on that one. But I think
you're no longer thinking about a twin pad at West Ferris?
Well, I think there's room for it. But
you still think there is?
I know there's room for it because I sized it out.
Okay.
Their argument is, you'll lose the soccer fields, but I mean, there's parts of that property they don't use. Even if they tried to remediate the existing rink and did an L-shaped sort of pad and did some community space in the center of it, I think there's merits to that as well, and still leaves room for some green space in that community.
I like that idea. I know there's some people really looking forward to a twin pad being built at Michelle because their businesses are out there, and I feel for them. But I have an office not far from there as well, and I like the area, and I think it's a bustling potential, really.
Yeah, it's a good plan B, really.
Yeah. So hopefully they don't shunt off your motion and delay it until after the decision to build something else and make it irrelevant. Really, is what would happen. Right?
Well, I guess part of it is there's only so many staff, there's only so many resources, and so they sort of, cognitive load and how many things can they work on at one time. So if they'd like to focus their energy on this Michelle and follow that through and then investigate this, personally, I think that you can do more than one thing at once, and you should start
very linear.
Yeah, imagine linear.
At any rate.
And I believe that is a consultant that's actually developing the RFP.
Okay.
Colliers is I understand is doing the
which consultant?
The consultant for the city that's doing the RFP development with staff for the Twin Pad Arena.
Oh, okay. Now, what else has that consultant done?
I don't know. I know that they were brought on, to help educate staff or staff and also council on the merits of various types of procurement. So then from that point on, I think that I was certainly impressed with them. They clearly knew their stuff. They clearly been around. They've done some, fairly important projects, and my understanding is that they have been retained in order to take it to the next level, which is the RFP development.
Well, we should hire them to do the study on the West Ferris Arena then.
Well, they're not engineers, but again, there's just so many,
Well, and to be fair, one of the reasons that went to committee is, I guess there was a 2019 study, right? So, one of their arguments was that we just looked at it, so we don't need to look at it again, because they are reviewing a bunch of different city assets right now.
I think the results of a study that I would like to see is we need to do this, it would cost this much.
That's it, yes.
Right? So
Correct.
we have a comparator, right? So then 2019 study didn't do that.
No.
Right? And I saw the list of different sort of hot button issues for the arena and different stuff and some sort of ballpark ideas about what it would cost, but not a real good hard look, right?
No.
So we're over the 1 year mark for both of us, new councilors, North Bay City Council. Sara, what have you learned over the last 12 months?
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. And it's been a positive experience overall. And
growth, even through conflict, right?
Yeah, certainly. Like it's, what do they call it? A steep learning curve. So it was a steep learning curve, but It's been good. And what have I? I'm very happy that I'm seeing people engaging. We're getting crowds out now in City Hall, and they're talking about their neighborhoods and what they need, and they're bringing up, old grievances. And I think I'm very optimistic about where this council is going to go. I think we're creating enough change that future councils will be able to bring it forward and continue with it, because I don't know what went on in the past. I have to be honest, I wasn't really plugged in. I had young children, but it seems like there is some element in the public. We're not too happy with some of the things that happened with the city. And I think that we're starting to heal that, and it's good.
I felt so bad for Jerry Stewart when he was up there talking about his land being flooded by the condominium project there, Premier Village. I was actually in his backyard doing stories with him when he was fighting against that, and saying, hey, if you displace acres and acres of water, it's got to go somewhere, right? And we're not built with infrastructure to drain it away, so it's going to come on my yard. And there we go. I guess we're 12 years later. And he's still there at council trying to talk about it, and everybody's hushing him down. I just felt bad, right?
Yeah.
Like he's been, that's a tough thing, because, he's been there for a long time. He had dreams about that land and possibilities, and it didn't work out. And now this particular, I'm not sure if you saw my newsletter, but I looked into what R6 allows for that property, if it was rezoned. And the group home thing stuck right out at me, because R6 allows for first and second level group homes, and second level, I believe, 3 to 8 or 10 residents plus staff. That could be a pretty busy little corner.
Right.
If the new property owner, if it's sold, decided to go that way, if council agrees to rezone it right up to without any conditions.
Do you know something we don't know? Is there a group home looking for
No, but
for land?
Whenever I did coverage of city council and rezonings, we always looked at what are the possibilities that could be allowed if you make this decision.
Right.
So you look at the very most intense use, right? And that's what everybody should look when there's a rezoning. And I know they had a sketch of a fourplex to show that it would fit, but I'm not sure. Didn't seem like everybody understood that this was just being rezoned for possible sale to another developer.
I think that got talked about, but
I think Councillor Gardner did speak to that.
Well, he brought it up, and but that's when it was revealed.
Yeah, and I guess that's often, and I'm not saying this is the case on this property, but as you've mentioned, sometimes the value of the property increases if a zoning can be changed by the current owner that puts you don't really, you don't know. I think the other side of that story is that, we are handcuffed in many ways by provincial legislation, our own zoning, and, having a staff recommend the, puts council in ways, a somewhat difficult spot, because if there was it was contested, because our planning staff said it was that it was permissible, we'd have to hire another set of staff, and then it is a long road to hoe, let's just say, to fight something like that. And again, housing is definitely a top priority. It's affordable housing is in short supply.
Well, they're estimating that we will have 5 million more people in Ontario in the next 20 years, right? And they need a place to live. So I do hope that, and I understand that different parts of North Bay have wonderful character, and they don't want that changed. And I understand that there's some people who might have signed agreements with developers, that limit different things, and maybe those agreements haven't held the water that they thought. And so there's some hard feelings out there, but we have to be careful about this because, for instance, I had someone email me after the Laurentian Heights and the Kenretta Drive meeting, and this gentleman had bought one of the properties for his daughter to move home from Toronto, and she's a doctor, and she read the coverage, and she said, I don't want to live there. I don't want to be in that neighborhood and have people not like me just because I'm living in a duplex. So I think going forward, I hope that if anyone watches this, that, just be mindful that they are people who are moving in, and they might actually be people fulfilling roles that we desperately need in North Bay.
Very
we need
good
more
point.
doctors. Right? And nobody wants it in their backyard, but unfortunately things are changing. And
Well, the homes up there on the escarpment, a lot of bigger lots and big homes, bigger lots. The new rule allowing up to 3 units. Now, can they be separate from the main house on a lot if there's enough room for setbacks?
I again, I'm not a planning expert, but I believe that some kind of secondary suite or like, for example, in Markham, there was an entire community plan, Cornell, and they had granny flats.
Yeah.
They had the main house, they had a little backyard, and on a laneway, it was like an in-law apartment and that kind of thing. I think it really is to inspire additional housing and intensification. So I would think that, yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah. So I think as a culture, as a community, as people in the North, we like our elbow room, but I think we're going to have to be a little bit more accepting of the fact that it's going to get cozy.
Well, I mean, if you look at other sort of older, and I don't mean older as in like 10 or 20, I'm talking ancient cities, whether it be in Europe, I mean, that's commonplace, to be, and quite honestly, it is a wonderful community develops when you are close that way. Everybody wants to, have their fence and have their prize you've mentioned. But there are some magical things that can happen when people are living close and working together and enjoy a community. So it's something that we really shouldn't be afraid of.
When I moved out to Corbeil and on the highway, and I thought I had a pretty good idea that there wouldn't be a lot of development around me because of the swamp on the left and the rock on the right, and the MTO not allowing too much traffic in that particular spot in the highway. And then all of a sudden, I was a month or 2 in, and the owner of the property that they had a right of way on my driveway to get to said, well, they're going to build a house right beside me, right? And I was distraught because I had this dream of privacy, right? And then over the years, the third owner of that property came to the door and said the same thing. I said, fill your boots, you'll find out you don't want to, like at the cost, right? Even the owners of the property, which are good friends now, they use 100 acres behind me to hunt. And they were thinking about building the house at the end of, before the field. But the added cost of the hydro and redoing the road and the culvert over the creek and all that, you sort of realize. But long story short, as it stands now, I kind of wouldn't mind them. A little bit of more activity around me. I wouldn't mind help on the driveway, right? It needs some upgrade.
You're not getting any younger.
Right? Like a little bit of cost there. I got almost 3 acres, and I was thinking about putting a house back there or letting somebody put their own house back there. Right. I don't mind it as much. Controlled. But it's not really a good example when you're looking at, you got a less than a half-acre lot and you're squished and your neighbors aren't good, and it can be really confining. Right. But if you get in the right neighbors, the right attitude, it's not so bad, but we like our space.
Well, I lived on a street once, and we used to have street parties, and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we knew each other, and we were able to give each other privacy and maintain that, but we also could come together, and if you needed something, you could ask a neighbor for help. Yeah. And hopefully, maybe we'll come back to that.
Well, I moved around a lot with my parents, and everywhere new place we went, they were great with neighborhoods. They loved the socialization. It was like our house became one of the center party places. They got along with so many people. Right. It's quite different to some people's experiences in neighborhoods, but it can be done.
Yep. It is what you make of it, too. I mean, our house, we had 5 kids, and ours was the local rec center. So where anybody got kicked out of their house or there was a place to go, many times coming down the stairs on a Saturday morning, there'd be 20 or 30 pairs of shoes there. And, it was a great feeling. And my kids were there, so I knew where they were. But it is what you make of it. I particularly I enjoy people. I don't have beef with many people.
Do either of you have family members outside your direct family living with you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have my. I wouldn't say that. I would have my son and his girlfriend, and they have a son. So they're right now getting on their feet. And
so dual family in
Yep.
under one roof.
Correct.
I have an international student.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Oh, right on.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I bet you that is.
Yeah, he's from China, and he's a graduate of the Culinary Arts program at Canadore. And so it's been interesting sharing
Good
our culture
experience so
with
far?
his culture. Exactly. Yes, very good experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we've had billets in the past for the battalion, like 2 or 3 billets. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's. I think that's one thing that's should be encouraged and motivated, and people should wrap their heads around it, because isolating yourself in your McMansion and not having any family around is. I don't know if you're getting the most out of life.
Well,
maybe
and-
for some.
Like, frankly, so I broke my ankle in the fall, and I had to ask for help. And I'm someone who's very independent. I don't like to ask for help. I had to ask for help. And I was very happy to have someone in my house that could walk my dog for me, right? And so as we're aging, people should maybe realize that you can't do everything by yourself. And neighbors are a source of community if you let them.
Well, if you look at the model of Castle Arms, for example, we've got a health and wellness person, and the idea there is to bring people together. So they have trivia night, they do excursions, they have a walking club, they do potlucks, they have competitions. Because I think if you look at the COVID pandemic, I think isolation and loneliness probably killed more seniors than COVID did. It is a horrible, horrible thing to be alone. And there's many studies that will show that social fabric, that social interaction, feeling a part of something adds to the quality of life, and particularly in aging.
Yeah, amen to that, for sure. I, with my Back in the Bay magazine, I was going around and seeing that isolation. And there's so many people out there that have lonely lives, right? It's a terrible thing. So we're going to wrap up in a little bit. We've almost covered a bit of an hour. What have you learned in the last 12 months that you would recommend to anybody running for council?
Process is our friend.
Yeah.
I think is what I would. I often have a different perspective, than a lot of council members, and I'm okay with that. I don't. A lot of my things don't get moved on, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take my ball and go home. It just gives me more fire in my belly to do more work. But I think that there is for me personally just a bit of a frustration, because I think the city could be so much more, and it's just taking a broader view of community development. I think is really my interest, and that's why I've been vocal on the arena and involved with Clean Green Beautiful to a certain extent, and a lot. I do committee work beyond my council responsibilities. Because I think the North Bay has a lot to offer, and I think that we've got to ensure that we do things in the best interest of everyone and not just groups. And I guess that's I wish there was a broader look at our community, and I would not like to think that people are being left behind.
Now, one more thing from you, Sara, if you don't mind. Something coming up in the next year that you really hope to put some energy behind and lead as far as an issue.
Well, the cricket
Right.
clubs in North Bay, they're looking for a cricket field.
Right.
So it's been 4 years they've been trying to get something developed, and there's 4 teams, and they hold a tournament every fall, and other teams come from Timmins, Sudbury, I think
Parry Sound as well.
Yeah, and we have a lot of support there, a lot of people who want to
play. How many football fields do you need for a cricket pitch?
You really.
It depends on what size of cricket pitch. If you
Right.
want the official size, you need quite a bit of space.
Yeah, 60 meters is what you need, and as far as I believe it's a diameter of it. And often in other jurisdictions, they'll put 2 soccer fields together, and the wicket where they bowl
Yep.
is in the center of it. So you can use the 2 soccer pitches, and then the center they can use and they use both those plus the center for a cricket match. And it's interesting to Sarah's point. I mean, North Bay boasts the most amount of teams in Northern Ontario, and we're the only one that we know of that doesn't have a cricket pitch. So here's a group that they raise their own money. They bring, I was at a Diwali event. I was, invited, and I
was there too.
Yeah, you were there.
It's a great community.
And that main ballroom at the Ramada, there was easily 400 participants there enjoying and having a great time, and couldn't say enough about the welcoming spirit of North Bay. They've been welcomed. They feel at home, and they couldn't say enough. And here they are. They're the emerging group. Like they're a group that's that is going to be important to the prosperity of North Bay. So, when you talk about some of these traditional things like ice hockey and those things, well, there are other things and an aging population. So that's where we got to look. So,
Yeah, new blood, new energy, and trying to make the place their home. Where do we have any spot to put them as far as 2 soccer fields?
Well, okay, so they had been practicing in Amelia Field.
Yep,
and
I've seen them there.
They had to use a different kind of ball, though, one that wouldn't travel as far when it was hit.
Right.
So now they're looking at, is it Graham Field? Is that the one across from Armstrong Park? Off
there's one further
Lakeside?
north as well. that they're
Yes,
looking at.
and so then they were also looking at, I don't know if I'm allowed to share it, so I can't share it. But there's another location.
And a park location north part of the city. It's a passive park at this point, as I understand. But it needs such big room. Like the thing that's really interesting about cricket, which I really love about it, it's a family event. Cricket matches can go on all day. So in past developments I've worked on, often there is some kind of structure there where they can host washrooms and they can cook there and they have picnics and people come from all over, and it really is part of their social fabric. And it brings people together. And I just really love that part about the game. And again, it's kind of no different if you look at North Bay in the 50s and 60s. The same kind of things were going on, multi-generational homes. They're buying businesses. They're working, to make a better life for themselves. And so we're seeing that again with this community. So, I'm hoping that we'll be able to help this group and move that project forward.
Well, and I met someone at the Y, a retired Air Force person, and they played cricket. They're talking about their shoulder injury. So I think maybe more people play cricket than we know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or would. Yeah.
Or would, yeah.
The only place up North Highway I'm thinking is flat and big is the old psych hospital property.
But that doesn't belong to the city, though, right? It's still a
It belongs
provincial
to the
asset.
MTO for aggregate use, right? For
Oh.
what's under the soil, but possibly there could be a temporary.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Guys, we're running out of time, but I very much appreciate you guys coming to the
Thank you
Blue
for
Room
having
here
us.
at the North Bay Echo and be part of a Small Town Times podcast.
Thank you.
Congratulations. This is a great move for North Bay. We needed a podcast.
I think it's bringing more voices from the community and giving more opportunities for people to speak, and it generates a momentum of coverage that helps the other media platforms. Mm-hmm. I think we're on the right track. I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. A little bit of a sales job here. I want you to go to northbayecho.ca and sign up for the free newsletter. I do it for them Tuesday and Thursdays. It comes out at 4, and I try to put a bit of the local coverage that's going on, promote the podcasts that are done here and elsewhere, and sort of tie a couple things together within an event section. So We appreciate anybody that wants to be in touch with what's going on in North Bay to sign up for northbayecho.ca's Echo Essentials newsletter. There you go.